All right, well, Toronto Maple Leaf fans, it's time to panic again. That's right. It's every week or so there's another reason to panic, but this time the panic button is officially been hit. And Florida Panthers, obviously the defending Stanley Cup champs, are not ever going to be easy to beat. But the Leafs let them back in Game 3 and in that overtime game, or rather, the overtime game. And then Game 4, the Leafs are up 2-0, obviously, and then the Panthers have stormed back to tie the series at 2 games apiece. And if the Leafs lose the next one and go down 3-2, it's Wednesday night in Toronto, then I don't know. Look, I'd like to be optimistic and suggest that they're going to get it done, but it definitely feels like the Florida Panthers are getting in their groove. And Brad Marchand, unfortunately, is cursing the Leafs again. That's right, folks. David Hendsbee here in studio. David, you love it, don't you?
I love it. I got my Brad Marchand jersey on, too, just to rub it in.
I know. I can't believe it. But it's Boston Bruins Brad Marchand jersey. It's outdated.
It's the black ice jersey.
That's right. Anyway, Leafland, it's you never know, folks. Let's just wait and see what happens in the next one. Game 5 is going to be massive. Goes without saying, so we'll see. You got to play the games, as they say. You're never going to sweep Florida. Florida's going to be too tough to beat, and you're going to have to show, if you're going to be a Stanley Cup team, you got to beat the Stanley Cup champs. I think that's fitting. All right, thanks for tuning in and listening, everybody. Joining me here in studio is David Hendsbee, District 2, Lawrencetown, the Lakes, Chezzetcook, Eastern Shore. David Hendsbee, thanks for joining us.
Good morning.
That's changed, hasn't it?
Yes, after 30 years, I lost the Preston communities. I've been proud to represent those areas for the last number of years, and when the boundaries redistributed, I lost the Preston Township area into Cole Harbour, District 4.
Well, there you go. Janet Steele joins us, District 12, Timberlea, Beechville, Clayton Park, Wedgewood. Janet,
good morning, Todd. Thank you for having us.
And you look excited to be here.
I am.
That's great. Anyway, welcome. It is Councillor in the Hot Seat, and the way this works, folks, is if you'd like to chat with the councillors, give us a call at 902-405-6000. Again, 902-405-6000. It's just as simple as that. We've got the councillors for a full hour. Of course, we'll take your calls between 11 and 12, and whatever you want to get into. But again, for the next hour, it's time to chat with the councillors. 902-405-6000. Dave, what's cooking in your district?
Well, tonight I'll be going to the annual general meeting of the Memory Lane, which is the Lake Charlotte Historical Society. And it's been 25 years now that they've been established and opened up the Memory Lane project. So on Canada Day, they're going to have a very special event to commemorate the 25th anniversary. But tonight's their annual general meeting, and I'll be presenting them a check with $10,000 to go towards their Eastern Shore Archives Preservation Fund.
Let's tell us more about Memory Lane for those who don't know about it.
Well, Memory Lane is down Lake Charlotte, just behind the Weber store, where if you go to Clam Harbor Beach, you drive right by it. But it's I met Mr. Ford Weber about 35 years ago when I worked for Tom McGinnis, the MLA at the time, and Mr. Weber came in with an idea of having this period piece of having the old stores and the old churches and the old buildings in the area be brought to one spot for a commemoration heritage village, sort of like Sherbrooke Village is down in Sherbrooke Historical Village, but not of that same timeline. This is more the 30s, 40s, and 50s of what time was like back then. And so it's kind of a memory walk down memory lane. That's why they call it Memory Lane in regards to what life was like then. So it's been a great economic tourism boost for the area. We have a lot of community events and activities going on there, from car shows to concerts to clam shucking and everything else. It's a great thing. The big thing coming up the first weekend in June 7th and 8th, is their Coldwater Seafood Festival, and that is a delicious time to be there.
Yeah, are you a good clam shucker?
No. Kind of cut your hands on those things. That and oysters, yeah.
That's right. All right, Janet, what's going on in your district?
Well, one thing I want to mention is I'm planning a town hall on May 22nd at the Fairfax on Parkland, along with the MLA for Clayton Park West. So looking forward to having lots of residents come out for a meet and greet and to ask us some questions about things that are happening at the municipal or provincial level. So that's an event I hope to see lots of people join us at.
Okay, fair enough. 902-405-6000. That is the way to reach us again if you'd like to chat with one or both the councillors. 902-405-6000. So council meets David tomorrow night, correct? Or
Tomorrow at 10 o'clock, all
10
day.
o'clock,
Yep. And also a special event tomorrow night. We're also recognizing our citizenship awards for those great 9 students that have been doing some great work in schools.
Nice. What's on the agenda tomorrow that you think that might be of interest?
Well, in our particular areas, we finally get the report back, long overdue, for the rural active transportation report for infrastructure in our rural district centers. There were 5 communities that were consulted about a year or so ago in regards to the possibility, should we have sidewalk or type of other active transportation infrastructure, be paved shoulders or greenways. There's a lot of consternation, I guess you could say, in some of the communities in regards to proposing that the tax rate go from a rural tax rate to equal to a suburban tax rate, not to the urban rate, I should say, and not have the same kind of services available to them. But they were pretty opposed to, Porter's Lake against the sidewalk proposal, as well as Upper 10 Talon. So they're not going to go forward with any more project planning for those 2 communities for any infrastructure. Muscat Albert Harbor have been talking about sidewalks for 30 years, so they want to have a further discussion, but perhaps a different type of tax proposal. They'd like to have it modeled perhaps after the Sheet Harbor model. We have sidewalks down there for almost a dozen years now, and it seems to be to transform the community down there. And the other is Lucasville, and I'm trying to think what's the 5th community that's on that list. Hammonds Plains, yes.
Oh, Janet bailed you out. How's that?
Excellent.
Nice work, Janet.
So there's some more dialogue with those communities as well.
Okay, so I shouldn't say I wasn't aware. Tell us, let everybody know what the difference between how much of a difference is the tax rate between the 2?
Well, between the 2, there's 3 cents per $100 assessment.
Okay, so what's that materialize into generally, kind of average?
Well, on a $100,000 home, that's $300.
Okay, so to have sidewalks or not, it costs you $300.
It's the proposal they had was have a tax rate equal to the urban rate in perpetuity, and I said no. We should be looking at this more constructively. Is like, what's the capital cost of putting the sidewalk in? If you go with paved shoulders only, you should only be paying for the capital cost only, because there's no maintenance for paved shoulders, because the highways plow the roads off anyway with the shoulders. But when it comes to sidewalks, that's a different story, where there is ongoing maintenance down the road that has to be paid for.
Okay, but in principle, do you agree that if you're going to have it, you should pay more?
I always believe in a user fee process, yes.
Yeah. Janet, what's your take on that?
Oh, absolutely. I do believe in user pay.
Yeah. Okay.
The municipality is experiencing an affordability crisis, so we definitely need to be looking at user pay. Yeah,
I often hear that the municipality and the provincial government are facing an affordability crisis, but everybody is, though, right? Including the ratepayers. Yes. So what do you say to the ratepayers, Janet?
Well, what I say is that we need to be looking at ways to reduce costs. We need to be looking at ways to stay in our own lane and not be undertaking roles that are better played by other orders of government. There are a number of files where the municipality has become very active, and there may be an opportunity for us to step back. And we also need to work very hard to obtain as much possible funding from federal and provincial governments to support our environment work, to support our transit work. We don't only need to improve rural transit, we need to improve transit right across the city. And there's a lot of investment required. I know before I became a councillor, I read about bus rapid transit, and I thought it was close to becoming a reality. But after becoming a councillor, I've realized we're quite a ways away from that, and that there's a lot of investment required. If residents are able to use transit, it's a significant cost saving for them. But transit has to be rapid and reliable, and it has to go where residents want to go. Not everyone wants to travel to downtown Halifax at 8 a.m. in the morning.
Okay, you mentioned stay in your own lane, but the provincial government, some would suggest, has not stayed in its own lane when it comes to municipal affairs. David, what's your take on that? You've been an MLA, so what's your take on all this?
I believe in the constitutional separation of authority between the municipal, the provincial, and the federal governments. There can be cooperation at times, and I'm appreciative of that, especially when it comes to infrastructure funding. But there should be a time when the government should be able to, I guess you could say, stick to its own knitting in regards to its responsibilities. But from time to time, there might be times where the province may wish to interject themselves to help speed up things. At times, I'm not overly upset about it if it's done productively. But if it's counterproductive, then I have some issues with it. But most of the time, they seem to be productive. But sometimes they got to put the money where their mouth is. If they want to have this authority, then they need to have something to back it up, and that's the resources to do it.
Okay, so in principle, you seem to be somewhat supportive of the concept?
From time to time, I am. It all depends what the issue is. If I find if our municipal council is not moving on something fast enough, then I said, well, can the provincial government accelerate this or not?
Okay, 902-405-6000. Dave's giving us a call. Hello, Dave.
Hey, good morning, Todd. How you doing?
I'm doing well, you?
Yeah, pretty good for an old guy.
Great.
I hope I get the name of this right. I'm not really sure, but I'm wondering if the councillors can have any idea when the Phase 5 report is going to be adopted by council for the urban development. Am I calling that the right thing?
You're probably talking about the 5th stage of the regional plan adjustments. There's a report coming soon. We're looking at doing some suburban amendments right now. So that should be, I believe the stage 5 is probably, I would guess, maybe a year off. But I'm not sure. It all depends what particular issue you're referring to, because some things we're trying to accelerate in the next regional plan amendments.
Well, it's just looking at at properties that have been asked to be included in the new urban boundary for development, because you keep hearing about housing all the time, and 2.5 years ago, almost 3 years ago, we started that process, and I keep hearing it soon, and soon doesn't seem to be happening.
Well, you're probably talking to the Future Services community studies. There's 5 designated areas that have been identified as potential next urban development areas. And I know that the Sandy Lake proposal, we just seen a report of that at council just recently about the development potential there, as well as the one on the western side of the 102 highway over there by Susie's Lake and Bears Lake area. And we're still waiting for the other reports to come forward for the Westfall and Port Wallace and the other areas.
So there isn't a specific time when the sort of the Phase 5 report will be fully adopted by council. Again, I hope I'm asking the right question.
Yeah, the future. If you're referring to the Future Services community studies, they are coming forward, but they're coming in a piecemeal. As they get one done, they'll be bringing that to council. Another one's getting done, they'll be brought to council. So they're not all coming at once, but they are coming together, probably, hopefully, in good succession, one after the other.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Okay, Dave. Thanks. Appreciate the call. 902-405-6000. Eric, hello.
Hey, how you doing this morning, Todd?
I'm doing well, you?
I know you're feeling a little bit bad about Toronto, but don't let them down yet. They'll be all right.
Hey, listen, I'm fully qualified to panic.
Don't panic yet, man. They'll be all right.
Okay, all right. We shall see.
If they stay in the penalty box.
I shouldn't say qualified. I should say justified to panic.
Okay, Janet Steele questions I have for Janet Steele.
Sure.
Janet Steele. Okay, I voted for you, and I live in an area where there's a lot going on. First of all, it's this dragway on Washmilton Lake Drive.
Yes.
I mean, they escalate at numerous places, and somebody, and I hope to God I'm never around to see it, somebody's going to get hit on Washmilton Lake Drive. I talked to a cop one time, and he said, well, we can't do nothing, Mr. O'Rourke, because we don't have enough policemen. Secondly, there's a driving range up there by the towers at CBC, and I went up there one time, and I said, well, why are you letting this property go? Well, if you don't like it, he said, go to Brightwood. I thought that was kind of rude, you know. I mean, we have a driving range that operates 5 or 6 months of the year, and they're allowing a high-rise apartments. It's not affordable housing. If anything, can you guys do anything to try to, perturb these people from selling? And last but not least, down here on Washmill also, you did a nice job of landscaping down here in the park down here, and the people use it for cricket. Some people use it for soccer. why don't you look into trying to form some kind of a youth or a young kids, cricket situation or a young kids soccer? I'll let you retaliate on those three particular situations. There's a lot happening in your area, and I think you will have to take notice and see if you could do anything.
Mr. O'Rourke, thank you for your questions. Washmill Lake Drive is a very busy street. I have been speaking with our traffic management folks about what we can do on that street. Unfortunately, I know there's been a request for traffic signals at the corner of Washmill and Grand Haven Boulevard. To date, we have not. We're not showing that we have the traffic to support the signalization there. There has been a request for another crosswalk on Washmill Lake Drive to support bus use because I know it's challenging to get across the street there for people that live in the various apartment buildings. So, we continue to fund our Halifax Regional Police quite well. So I'll have a follow-up discussion on traffic and what can be done in that particular area.
Bentley Drive is a bad one. I've talked to a lot of people that live in the Bentley Drive area. That's an accident waiting to happen. Todd knows what I'm talking about. It's up there by the Twin Towers or at the CBC. People get off the bus there,
yes,
and it's 4 lanes of traffic, and they take their life in their own hands trying to get across the street. Now, I know you say you're going to put another walk sign. You got one at Washmill in Main Avenue,
yes,
and you got one down by
Grand Haven,
whatever it is,
by Grand Haven, yeah,
apartments. Yeah, I don't know. You got a racetrack there. They escalate coming down. They escalate going up. I don't know. Anyway,
it's a wide street.
The second one about the golf. Can you do anything about that driving range?
In terms of the golf course, my understanding is that when Regency Park goes through to Washmill Lake Drive, some of that area will no longer will be used for apartments, and that agreement has been put in place for that development to take place. I can't give you the timeline off the top of my head, but I understand that you like using the driving range there. I know many residents do, but my understanding is that that will no longer be there once the development goes through. And then you mentioned the third item. You mentioned, I wasn't sure what you were referencing there. Are you speaking about the playground on Washmill Lake Drive, or are you talking about the mainland common area?
No. I'm talking about the playland on Washmill Lake Drive.
Okay, yes.
And you did a nice job.
It's a nice playground. Councillor Rankin, I think, was responsible for that, yes.
Well, why don't you utilize it? You put soccer nets out there, and I see people playing cricket. Why can't you utilize it to accommodate the youth or the young people, so to give them something to do? Okay.
I run by there probably 3 or 4 times a week. I see lots of children on the playground. I'll have a discussion with our Parks and Recreation staff and see what is organized for there. I'm not 100% sure what it might be, but I do see a lot of children and families playing there on a regular basis. But I'm not 100% sure what is organized at that site. But we'll look into it. Thank you.
Eric, thanks for the call, bud.
Bye-bye.
Take care at 902-405-6000. We'll continue with the councillors when we come back.
Facts.
All right, you're talking municipal politics as per usual on Monday mornings. David Hendsbee's here in studio. Janet Steele's here in studio as well. And we got some time and room for you also. Give us a call at 902-405-6000 if you'd like to chat with one or both the councillors. Again, 902-405-6000. Shelley's giving us a call. Good morning, Shelley.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well, you?
Beautiful sunny day out there.
Yeah, not bad at all.
I am wondering about, we moved here about 20 years ago now, and prior mayors used to have, every spring we'd have what they call a city cleanup. People would just get out and clean up their properties. Now, I'm talking about public properties, not your own personal properties, businesses. Why don't the city do anything but garbage? The city is terrible how much garbage is around. We walk the Bedford Highway, and from literally, the Flamingo Drive right on down to Bedford, there's nothing but garbage on every side of the road. Now, I know some of that garbage is in front of properties, but a lot of it is city property too. The city don't pick up any garbage at all. Isn't there some kind of law? Even if the city don't want to pick up their own garbage, is there some kind of law against properties that should get out and clean up their garbage?
There is a street bylaw in regards to responsible for the maintenance of the property in front of their homes, and it also includes the ditches in some areas as well. And you're right, there should be some more enforcement of that. But last Sunday was the litter pick me up litter day in Nova Scotia. It was part of the great Nova Scotia Pick Me Up campaign they usually have every May and June as a part of the litter campaigns. In the past, I remember the city of Halifax used to have these slam dunk your junk was called.
That's a tongue twister.
Yeah, slam dunk your junk for litter pickup back in the days. But the problem now is that we used to have summer students and everything else going out picking that stuff up, and now it's become more of a road issue and stuff, and safety issues that become got to be much more careful.
The city don't seem to care. I mean, I see city trucks driving around, literally doing nothing. People just going to Tim Hortons and getting coffee. They come out and there's garbage. Nobody picks up any garbage anymore. And I came off the rotary yesterday or day before yesterday, and when you come off the rotary, you come up, it's a Chezzetcook, I think, that goes up into the shopping center. When you come up there, now Halifax, when people come to Halifax, if they want to shop, the first thing they say is, well, the Halifax Shopping Center or the Micmac, but the Halifax Shopping Center is the big drawing factor. There is so much garbage on that land entering the shopping center. It's unreal. Now, I don't know who's responsible for that. I don't know if that's the city or the Park 8. But it's terrible how much garbage is around.
Okay, Janet, go ahead.
Okay.
Janet's going to give...
Thanks, Shelley, for raising this. I agree. There are many unsightly areas around the city. There is, if it is city property, the city is responsible. In some cases as well, you'll see along the 102, there's a lot of garbage, and that's the province that's responsible. What I've seen work very well is there's a number of organizations and associations that organize cleanups. And I know your point of view is perhaps that the city should be doing it, and the city does some of it. But I know a couple of weeks ago I was part of a Halifax Northwest Trails Association cleanup of a park area, and there's a lot of groups that are taking the initiative to do that. And if you want to do that, if you're aware of an organization that wanted to do that, contact the city and we'll ensure that you have garbage bags, gloves, the pickers, etc. But I think your point's a really valid one. We're promoting our city. We'd like to welcome tourists and conferences, and it needs to look good and be smart so that people want to come and visit and come back. So thank you for your point.
And also,
what you just stated there, it's essentially you're passing the buck on to someone else out of the city's responsibility, because a lot of these properties are city properties, and the city is the one that should be not paying some kids to go out and clean up a park. Tourists come to our city, they never see that park. You need to concentrate on the city itself, the city land, the city property, the city streets.
Well, our maintenance crews are just starting to do their annual cleanups and start cutting the grass. Normally they go around, they pick up the litter before they cut the grass. So they're just starting that process now, getting the crews out. And then pretty soon you'll be seeing the planting of flowers and shrubs and stuff in various community gardens. So you'll see that they usually pick up the garbage before they do all that work.
Yeah. And just to add to David's point, Shelley, if you're noticing spots that are particularly egregious, my recommendation is call 311 with the address or send them a quick email at contact us at 311.halifax.ca. And they'll give you a service number and you can track it and you can stay on them to ensure that it happens.
It's embarrassing to have company come and have them point out to you that there's so much garbage around.
Well, I think we'd all agree that it's a problem that needs to be addressed, Shelley. I would agree. I think everybody would agree with that.
It's terrible.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
Just one other point. We were downtown on the waterfront. Everybody goes to the waterfront when they come to Halifax. We walked the waterfront, and wherever there's grass, like there's not a lot of grass downtown anymore, but wherever there's a little bit of grass, there's garbage everywhere. And I think that the city is responsible for that, not the businesses. That's my opinion.
Yeah, it depends on whether it's the business's property. I know around Bears Lake, I had a number of complaints from residents about garbage, and in some cases, it's the property owners, the commercial property owners, and in other cases, it's the city's responsibility.
There must be some enforcement mechanism that should be applied.
Calling
right?
311 is what works in compliance.
Also, our downtown business districts also employ students in the summertime, so they'd be starting in June, July, and August, going around picking up litter. So it's just a little early for them to be out there.
Okay, Shelley, listen to Get a Boogie. Thank you.
Well, but like you said, if it's the city, it's the property of the owner, but the city should enforce it, shouldn't they?
Well, I think we'd all agree that something needs to be done. Thanks for the call. Appreciate it. 902-405-6000. We'll be back. All right, Councillors on the hot seat, David Hendsbee, Janet Steele here in studio. Give us a call if you'd like to chat with one or both of them, 902-405-6000. Again, 902-405-6000. Talking about the litter and garbage before I go back to phones to chat with Brian. Janet, I'll ask you first. Do you know anybody who litters anymore? I mean, even to think that people are just intentionally tossing garbage away in this day and age, to me, blows my mind.
Yeah, I don't know any adults that litter, but I do find there's a lot of litter around our schools in our district. So I'm hopeful that an emphasis is being placed on not littering and protecting the environment in our educational system.
Obviously, it's not.
Well, sometimes you need to have the lesson more than once, perhaps.
Yeah, okay. David, what about you? I mean, littering. I mean, look, I remember going back in the day, people littered in the 70s. I don't know if they didn't know any better, but awareness wasn't what it was. But
back in the day, back in the 70s and 80s, I remember the provincial anti-litter campaign when they had the old granny anti-litter out there promoting the cleanliness of our province and stuff like that. And but it's becoming more problematic as products come by. More takeout restaurants going through stuff. I find it so annoying that you can tell how far you're away from a fast food restaurant. It depends on how fast or how quickly the coffee gets cold and the cup's out the window.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, but I mean, of all the major problems that we have today, to me, this would be the easiest one to fix. Just simply don't litter. It's really simple.
Yeah. No, it'd be just a little bit of more moral fiber, I guess you require.
There you go. 902-405-6000. There's not enough moral fiber to go around these days. Brian, hello.
Hi, Todd. Back to this littering thing. This has been a pet peeve of mine for like 20 years. I called in many, many, many times. I've talked to the senior people in the city. I find that, yes, people are littering still. You'll find a lot of these little garbage bags that people have in their motor vehicles. They tie them off, and they just secretly pull over to the side of the road, and they toss them out onto the side of the road. I've seen it.
Yeah.
I've seen it.
Yeah.
I've also, the highways, coming from, like, say, Sackville, or even just before Sackville, coming in on your service highways, the big ones, the disgrace of the garbage that's in the ditches, that Hammonds Plains Road, another one, the filth, and coffee cups. Tim Hortons could do something like they do in Newfoundland. For every coffee cup they bring in, the people bring in stacks of them, bringing them, they get money back for them. That could be set up with every individual Tim Hortons to try and to curb this. It's a culture of garbage. I've never seen so much garbage in the last 5 to 7 years. It's tripled. I remember taking somebody out. I don't know if anyone knows where that. Where the milk container is on the Hammonds Plains Road?
Yep.
Well, you turn right in there and you head that water road. I had, to the milk place, I had to bring a guy out, 311. I brought a service guy out, and over the bank, people were taking their home garbage that they must have got refused, open up, and they throw it over the banks, tea kettles, coffee, you name it, it is over the side of the bank. Last week, driving in on the highway, there was somebody's deck box, a coach, a refrigerator. This. I'm not making this up. This is really what's going on. And the roundabouts, not the roundabouts, sorry, but the off-ramps, like going into Sackville, Bedford, just look into the ditches.
Yep.
People have to wake up and see this. I've brought this to many, many people. Like, we have, like, it's a serious problem here. And when you go, and it's funny, you go into New Brunswick, you don't see anything. You don't see any of this going into New Brunswick. Going into Fredericton, it's green, it's clipped, the grasses are tended to, the bifurcated highway. It's clean, it's green, up in the Miramichi. You don't see anything like this. People that come in here from another country or fly in for visiting, they come up those highways, they just must think it looks like the third world. And I've been over there, the third world. And it's just like that. It's terrible. Why?
Janet, what's your response to Brian?
You got to put cameras out, guys. You got to put cameras out. The laws are too lax, and they have to enforce this. And then that one real quick thing. Why don't students get something together, the university students, make a study out of it? Hire up a flatbed truck instead of, do a study, like break it into hectares and whatever it is and make some project out of it, just to show what kind of garbage is being. It's not all from construction sites either, and it doesn't always blow off trucks. These are intentional people that take their household garbage out and put it at the side of the road, and it gets broken open, and it's everywhere. It gets into the streams, it's into the fishing streams, it's into the lakes. And then one last thing, I was diving in Cuba 2 years ago. I found a tin Hortons cup when I was diving. I was down around 90 feet. I couldn't believe what I saw.
Wow.
I have it on camera. I have it on my view camera. So we have a serious problem, yes.
I agree.
Okay?
And
it's the highways. They're just
okay,
disgusting.
Brian, Jen's going to respond.
Okay. No, Brian, I agree with a lot of your points. I do think it's really important that both the municipality and the provincial government focus on this. I think we need marketing and education campaigns for our residents. And I think you make a good point about New Brunswick looking more pristine than Nova Scotia.
Oh, beautiful.
And we get a lot of our provincial revenue from our tourism products. So this is a risk for our tourism. I know I personally hauled a mattress a couple weekends ago when I was participating in a cleanup. That may have blown off a truck or it may have just been dropped. But it's almost unbelievable the amount of garbage that we're seeing out there, particularly
blow your mind.
Particularly along the highways. So I
Microwave ovens.
I encourage you to speak to your provincial colleagues about this as well.
I have.
There's a lot of work to be done, and everyone needs to pitch in. Thank you.
Okay, Brian. Not sure where else we can go with it, but thanks for the call. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Okay, take care. 902-405-6000. Mark, hello.
Hello. How you doing?
Well, you?
Oh, not too bad, Mr. Hendsbee. Listen, I was wondering, what happened to them letters that I sent back?
Which letters are you talking about, sir?
The letters for the municipality sent registered letters here. There was a bill for $16,000 on the property to a dead person. 2 of them, actually. Is there anything going to change on that deed? Did you check anything out? Did you even find out if the will was legal?
I have to check on the paperwork on that one. So could you give me a call later after the show and I'll get the information again? Just refresh.
All right. Well, you can drop by. You know where I live, right?
I believe I do. Yes. You still got that HAB symbol. Still got that HAB symbol.
On,
yeah, the Montreal symbol, the driveway. I know where you're at.
Okay, great.
Okay, give him a call after, Mark. Sounds like sounds like insider baseball stuff going on there. 902-405-6000. Kathy, hello.
Oh, hi. Good morning.
Hi.
I just have a comment, too, about littering, and I was wondering what happened to all the signage that used to be along the highways and the roadways of fines that would be handed out to people who did throw the garbage out the windows. Where did all those signs go?
I don't know. Either councillors know?
I know a few of the signs, it's on the post when they got knocked down from snow plows, whatever, or rusted away. I know there used to be a number of signs out. I see a few of them knocked over and being fixed, but there used to be a lot more. And I think the province even talked about the increase in the fines. I think they used to say minimum $250 fine, and I said I think they need to go a little higher than that now.
Yeah, I used to see them along the highways.
Which,
but I
where?
don't see any of the signs now.
Where are they missing now?
And the funny thing is,
out on the 102, I always look and I never see a littering sign along that highway.
Okay.
yeah, and the old symbols was a tin can opened up. That's
Right.
kind of it's an old symbol. I guess they need to update that to a coffee cup or something.
Well, they got to do something because I know what the callers are talking about. It's just outrageous.
Yeah, I think our provincial transportation department can help you with that.
Yeah. I thought you'd be able to help me with that where you're the councillors. I thought maybe you could put it out there that maybe some more signage has to go up.
We can raise it,
if
but
it's a provincial roadway, then that's their jurisdiction, right?
yeah.
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 Well, I know my local highway supervisor. I'll give him a call.
Okay, good enough.
Okay, Kathy. Take care.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, 902-405-6000. Well, when it comes to trash, look, there are things that the general population can do, and there are groups that have been proactive in this, right, Janet? And that's not a bad thing.
Yeah. Yeah, no, there have been groups, various associations, trails associations, and community groups as well. They do the general community groups. They'll do the pickup, and they organize with the city to have the bags, the gloves, the pickers, and the key thing to do, and I just want to stress this, is if you're picking up from city property, but if you pick up from provincial property, the city really can't be involved with that. So it's city property where we'll provide some support. But the best thing is to call 311, and they'll advise you on how to proceed.
Well, also the provincial government has adopted highway programs as well and litter campaign pickups. So they'll provide the same gloves and garbage bags and stuff and vests and stuff if you're working alongside the highway. So they also have a community support program as well. And when they collect the garbage, take it to a central spot somewhere in the community, and then they'll be by to pick it up the next day or so.
Yeah, I guess the main point is that yes, the municipality and the provincial government ultimately have responsibility and should, but community members and community groups have always and will always play a role in this challenge, right, David?
But where is the personal responsibility? Why is the person littering in the first place?
Right, exactly.
Take it home.
Yeah, and you talk about enforcement. I mean, it's pretty difficult to enforce somebody throwing a coffee cup in the ditch, right? It's kind of almost impossible.
Well, we recently changed our illegal dumping bylaws where if you can find any piece of receipt or identification in the garbage, now it's reverse onus that now we can find that person. Is that your name has been associated with this garbage, you're responsible for cleaning this up, and if not, we're going to charge you.
Okay. 902-405-6000. We've got the councillors at the top of the hour. Get some room for you as well. Again, 902-405-6000. We'll be back. All right, continuing with our councillors, David Hendsbee, Janet Steele here in studio. Give us a call, 902-405-6000. Albert, hello.
Yeah, good morning. Yeah, I'm glad to hear a bit of momentum mounting on this litter issue. It seems to me, I mean, I totally applaud any community groups that do their annual cleanups, and I have taken part in many of them. But every year there's even more there to pick up. So we just can't depend on a few well-meaning individuals to pick up the garbage, everybody else's garbage. It seems to me the city itself is just not spending the amount of time on litter cleanup. I remember years ago you'd see city staff walking the streets, or in the streets, doing just that, picking up litter. I never see it anymore. I don't think the city's spending as much on garbage removal. Is that true or not? There's certainly more garbage, that's all it is.
Well, I know in the downtown business improvement districts and Spring Garden Road areas, stuff like that, I know they have their own staff going out cleaning, making sure those areas are clean of litter. In the past, it used to be cigarette butts everywhere, but now it seems to be less and less of that nowadays. But there are groups that still go out there and do the routine going around, cleaning it up. The boardwalk is another busy spot that gets picked up from time to time. But we need more of it, that's for sure.
Yes, I do. I would hazard to guess that the number of staff has decreased.
Listen, Albert, you talk about resources, and we know that we talk about paving, and there's so many issues so if you're going to spend money on that, you're taking money from somewhere else, right, Janet?
Yes, absolutely. I'm curious, Albert, what role do you see I'm not supposed to ask you a question, but I will. What role do you see education playing in this? Because, I mean, really, shouldn't we just stop the people from littering? I mean, you're not going to get everyone, but couldn't we do a better job on that?
Yes, that's true. And I think perhaps there's less respect by young people. I remember seeing near Sackville High, there was some beneficial group was giving out free pizzas on plates just to be nice to all the high school kids. Well, what are the high school kids doing? They're gladly accepting the pizzas, they're eating them, and then they just chuck the styrofoam plates where they were when they finished. So I think there's less respect among high school age students anyway. But to get back to the point of cleaning it up, what's the prospect of getting, like maybe young offenders, instead of doing time sitting inside of a concrete cell, we could get
the old chain gangs.
Employ the penal system. I had talked to there had been something like that done once. I'd met a young offender who had been employed helping rehabilitate the Sackville River. And the guy, this seemed like the experience transformed him. He was so enthusiastic about it. He thought it was such a great thing. He'd seen nothing but concrete walls all his life, growing up in the inner city and being in a penal institution.
Okay, all right, Albert.
Unusual punishment.
Albert, I don't think that there's no point in that conversation. It's not happening, right?
That program's still available, the alternative fine option program, where they can work off their fines through community service work.
That's my second suggestion. Yeah.
Okay, but do you see that as part of the solution, though, David?
But normally you need to have that person associated with the local community group. That's where the problem is. You got to have the person to be supervised and to be monitored and stuff, and that's where the difficulty comes in.
Yeah, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Albert, thanks for the call, pal.
We're just going to spend more money on them. We're spending more money on all kinds of things, but the population is increasing greater than our tax rate is increasing, obviously. So
okay, thanks for the call, Albert. Thanks, bud. Take care. Mary. Hi, Mary.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing well, you?
Thank you. Well, thanks. No, I was just kind of piggybacking on the whole garbage thing now. With my work, I drive all day and all in different parts of HRM and Dartmouth, the whole thing. And I certainly see a lot of the highway trash in that, but we live downtown, and I know it's kind of the nature of the beast. You want to live downtown. You're close to everything, but the trash on the weekends is absolutely horrific. I mean, we were just in New York a couple of weeks ago. We've been to San Francisco. I mean, we just travel all over, and nothing in any of these cities. Times Square was cleaner than Pizza Corner. And I know people are out partying and everything, but there's garbage cans on every corner, and they do have people come up and they clean the next day. So there's cleaners that come and take care of that. But sometimes you're out walking your dog and the stuff you see is it's really gross. So I think it's just a matter of a lack of consideration. And I'm not going to say it's all young people, because that's not true.
No, it's true.
It's people, and they're partying and they're doing their thing and they're getting their food, and they're just I mean, they're literally littering when there's a garbage can within 1 to 5, 10 feet of wherever they're getting their food and stuff. So it's just a horrible thing. It's especially in the summer. Hopefully they'll pick it up more in terms of cleaning. They're not going to have cleaners out there at 3 a.m. or 4 a.m., which is, not to sound like a fuddy-duddy, but the issue is when a lot of these places are open, and it's great because it's, consumerism, but they're open until 4 or 5 in the morning. So the longer you're out, the more you're partying. You know what I mean? It's just so gross to see it. It really is. It's disheartening, because this is a beautiful city, and people just need to take more pride. So I don't know if it is. I think education, and I think that education really needs to be in the schools, elementary, junior high school, university. I mean, just like let them know. People know better. They just don't do better. So
I can't disagree with that.
I totally agree with that, Mary. I think that's an excellent point. The city can do more, the province can do more perhaps, but really we need people to do better, as you said, and not litter in the first place. And there will be some litter, and it'll have to be cleaned up by community groups, by the city, by businesses. But I think we need to try to stop the litter before it happens.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I remember my husband's American, and I don't know if you all remember that there was it was a commercial that they used to run, and it was Indigenous person, and he would sit there, and it was all about the garbage. It was kind of an animation cartoon. commercial, and he just had this tear running down his face. And people still talk about that. And it's time you maybe, because he's like, this is our land. And as stewards of this land, we need to do better. So I think there needs to be more, just an all-out, like, blow it up on the televisions if anybody's watching TV anymore, radio commercials. Just, we need to do better for sure. And I think the government can take a hand in the school system to just with that education. So that's it.
Okay, Mary, thanks for the call. Great points.
Thank you.
All right. All right. Take care. Listen, we didn't get to everybody. A lot of people wanted to talk about litter and garbage. If you want to continue the conversation during the open hour, you can certainly do so. Stay on the line. We've got an open hour coming up, 902-405-6000. David Hendsbee, thanks for coming in, my friend.
No problem at all. Go Panthers.
And don't wear that jersey anymore. And Janet, thanks for coming in as well. All right, that's Janet Steele, David Hendsbee. You got it. Your calls when we come back. All right, taking your calls. The way to reach us is 902-405-6000. Again, 902-405-6000. A lot of people during the Councillors on the Hot Seat talking about trash and litter in the area, and a lot of frustration out there, obviously, goes without saying. So one of the questions that I thought I'd throw out there for you to weigh in on is, I'm not going to ask, do you litter? Because I can't imagine anybody calling the show and saying, yes, I litter. But what I'll ask is, do you know people, have you witnessed this? Because I can honestly say I cannot tell you one person that I know litters. I shouldn't say that I've seen them litter. I really don't. And a lot of talk about this, about kids, and look, I don't want to make this a generational thing, but as Janet Steele talked about in the Councillor, she said around schools, it's absolutely, it's evident that the litter is unbelievable. So this is something that I'm not sure what can be done or what should be done, but this email from Jonathan, and again, by the way to reach us is 902-405-6000. If you'd like to talk about this or anything else you got in your mind, it's an open hour. 902-405-6000. But Jonathan says this via email, says, to the people complaining about the litter and trash, if you see it, step up and pick it up. Don't keep complaining and expect action. Take initiative yourself. Neighbors and I clean up George Hepworth Park in Bedford twice a year, and each time collect between 5 and 8 bags of litter from this one park. It's a park the size of 2 residential housing lots. If we waited for the city to do it, it would never, ever get done. Comes from Jonathan, and that's absolutely true. And the other thing to consider, it's easy to say, well, the city needs to take care of all of this. Well, okay, what resources are you willing to sacrifice in order to have a robust litter cleaning team out there? I don't know. I don't know what the cost would be, but I would think it would be large in order to keep on top of this. So what are your thoughts on the litter problem in our province and in our city, and what do you think can be done or should be done about this? Because it is a serious issue. It's visible, it's embarrassing, it's bad for the environment, it's bad for habitat, there's no upside to it, obviously. 902-405-6000, that's the way to reach us. Debbie's giving us a call. Hello, Debbie.
Hi, Todd.
Hi.
I travel by bus, and when you're driving, I used to drive, but I travel by bus now, and when you're driving, you have to pay attention to the road and the traffic and the pedestrians and all that. But when you're on a bus and you're up that high,
yeah,
it's amazing. You see things that you can't see in a vehicle. The other point, and the garbage is horrendous. This city and this province is full of it. I don't know what New Brunswick is doing, but maybe we should look into it. And the other thing is, maybe we should start thinking outside the box and flip this fining litters. Instead of finding the people that litter, because you can't find them. You litter and it's gone. You're not going to.
Yeah.
So maybe what we should do is put a fine on the property owners that have litter, so the onus is up to them to remove the litter on their property. And if they don't, they're fined and it's put on their property taxes. In one way, it's going to generate revenue. Number 2, it's going to encourage people to pick up the garbage on their property.
Mm-hmm.
And when you talk about, you were talking about people, you don't know any people that litter.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, I travel by bus everywhere, and there's so many people in Nova Scotia that are, struggling financially. They don't give a shit. They don't give a crap about litter. And actually, I think some of them, and I've witnessed this myself, they litter. They throw garbage around almost as an act of defiance. And the final point I want to point out is I used to live in Timberlea, and I would travel into Halifax on the Timberlea bus. And there's a road in Bayers Lake near those two hotels. It's Lakelands Boulevard. In 2019, I noticed a big sheet of clear plastic wrapped around the base of a tree that's in the boulevard, the grass boulevard of Lakelands Boulevard. And I called 311. I've called 311 probably 6 or 7 times about this. And there is, all summer, there is somebody going there to cut the grass. And to this day, in 2025, there is still remnants of that large sheet of clear plastic around the base of that tree. So city workers don't even have the common sense to remove garbage when they're right there. I mean, they've been cutting that lawn for 6 years since I've noticed that plastic, and it's still there.
Yeah.
And that's my point. I think that we should, in European and Scandinavian countries, they charge people for having garbage on their property.
Mm.
And it produces revenue, and it gives a reason, purpose, or entices people to pick up garbage.
Okay, Debbie, appreciate your comments. Thanks for the call.
Thank you.
Take care at 902-405-6000. Colin. Hello, Colin.
Hey, how's it going?
Going well, you?
Good. I live outside of Halifax, Beaverbank area, and once a year I clean up the mailboxes around where we get our mail, because there's no garbage can, and people just, the little flyers that you get, well, they don't take them home. They just throw them on the ground. So that's great. But, some of them biodegrade, but some of it's plastic and stuff like that. And then we often walk on trails out there, and even if you find garbage and you find a mailing address for the person, they won't do anything about it. We found a whole thing of diapers and whatever, and we found a piece of mailing address. Well, we sent it to East Hants, and we sent it to the city, and they said, well, we can't do anything about it because you may have planted that there. Well, why would I plant someone's mailing address there that I don't even know?
Yeah,
I'm just trying to report and do the right thing.
Yeah.
And 3 years later, that garbage is still there.
Yeah.
It's just people don't have any respect for it anymore. It's just there's no consequences for anything, and until, like the last caller said, there's some fines implemented, it's not going to change.
Colin, do you think the attitude's gotten worse because we hear about the 70s, and I lived, of course, in the 70s, and people had a different attitude about garbage, and they definitely did about littering. But do you think we're reverting here?
Oh, 100%. But also, the attitudes back then was if you wanted to get rid of oil, you dug a hole in the back of your yard, and you just dumped out the oil.
Yeah.
I live in a house that was built in the 70s, and there was a garbage pile out back for
right.
sure.
Yeah.
But there's some places right around the corner from me. We have regular garbage pickup, but some of them just choose to throw their garbage right out in the bush.
Mm.
It just doesn't make any sense, and I don't know if it's generational or socioeconomic. I don't get it. I absolutely don't get it.
Yeah, it's bizarre. It really is. You'd think that this is something that we would be improving upon instead of regressing. It's bizarre what the core reasons are. Colin, perhaps it's got something to do with our throwaway society that we live in.
100%. 100%. Yep.
Okay, Colin. Appreciate the call. Take care. 902-405-6000. Wayne, hello. What's your take on all this?
Good day, sir. How are you?
I'm well. You?
Well, I'll tell you what I learned from the last time I called you. don't call you when I'm dealing with a death in the family. That took me by surprise. But anyway, what I think of all this is I can't remember if it was the late Rick Howe show or your show. Somebody called in from Eastern Passage that said he had cleaned up a lot next door to him, and he was doing it for years, and he got in trouble with the city. And I can't remember what the trouble was, but if somebody in Eastern Passage is listening, maybe they can call in and fill us in what happened to him. But here's what I got from it. I called 311, and I asked 311 if I pick up garbage, put it in the bag, and then drop it on the side of the road, am I littering? And they said yes. They said, when I pick it up, it's now my garbage, it's my responsibility, and it's my job to get rid of it. Well, guess what? I haven't picked up a piece of garbage since that. Yeah. And every time I'm driving out the 102 from Beers Road, out the 103, if you have a landfill anywhere near you, all you see is garbage the whole way out. But somebody made it there this weekend and cleaned it all up. But the 103 in the last 5 days was littered heavily with white paper and garbage. And it came off the back of one of the garbage trucks and somebody cleaned it up. Yeah. So from now on, whenever I see a lot of garbage, I just call 311 and let them know where it's at and let them go get it.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, Wayne. Thanks for the call, bud.
Okay, cheers.
All right, take care. 902-405-6000. We'll continue with your calls when we come back.
Thanks.
All right, continuing with your calls. The way to reach us 902-405-6000. Again, 902-405-6000. Quick email from Jordan, then back to the phones. Jordan says, I just wanted to send an email and talk about the garbage at Kinsman Park off of First Lake Drive in Lower Sackville. The high school kids from Sackville High use this as a lunch hangout. There are at least 8 garbage cans out, and the majority of kids just throw the garbage on the ground. I called and emailed the school to complain about it. Was told both times that the kids, once they are off school grounds, it's not the school's problem. They can't enforce the littering issue. That's from Jordan. 902-405-6000. All right, let's get back to it. Let's talk to Lisa. Hello, Lisa.
Hi, Todd. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure thing.
Just a small comment reference to the garbage downtown Halifax. I think when COVID hit in 2020, they started removing most of the garbage cans due to sanitation cleanup of all the areas that people would be gathering. And they haven't put those garbage cans back after we sort of finished with COVID.
Yeah, perhaps, Lisa, but it still baffles me that somebody will decide to throw their garbage on the ground just because there's not a garbage can around. That to me blows my mind. I mean, I think that personal responsibility and personal accountability has to be in play to some degree.
Absolutely, I agree. But when there's a garbage can around, it makes it that much easier.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Thanks for the call. Take care. 902-405-6000. Again, I'm far from perfect. I get all kinds of flaws like all of us do, but that's one thing I can honestly tell you that I do not do is litter. And to me, it's if we could solve the problem if everybody simply just did that, just not litter. And I realize that probably people listening to this show generally would be civically minded. That's kind of the nature of call-in radio, talk radio. And perhaps I'm preaching to the choir, to use a metaphor, but it's true. It's one of the easiest things to do on planet Earth is to not litter. If not, it's beyond easy. I don't get it. 902-405-6000. Jeff, hello. Hi, Jeff. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, hey, Todd. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
I live in Lunenburg, the town of Lunenburg. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if people know this, but it's surrounded by a ring of garbage, the whole town along the highways, the trails, Highway 3, Highway 323. I've been on my own project for about 7 years. I was taking time around Earth Day to collect garbage along the highway, and I'd spend maybe 2 weeks doing it, maybe 4 days of each week. And the last time I did, I spent about a month. I covered about 21 kilometers, collected about 60 bags of garbage. I'd sometimes get people to help me, but not very often. And I can tell you, just by the litter I've collected, it's coffee cups, beer cans, plastic containers, fishing rope, fishing equipment of various kinds. They just dump them in the ditches, and but I just became a bit discouraged. My last time I did it was a few years ago. I ended up getting Lyme disease, and so I've cut back on this. I haven't done it for, except for a couple of days here and there. But it's very discouraging how lazy people are, especially with the litter from like Tim Hortons, the biggest contributor of the products that they have. You see them everywhere along the ditches. Anyway, so it's very discouraging. I don't think people are really thinking about it. They just toss things out the window, and that's it. I'd get people beeping at me and throwing cans at me along the highway.
Wow, unbelievable.
Yeah. And, it's some people stop, slow down. Some people will, tell me, thanks. Then they just continue on. But some people have joined me. A few times it's happened, but over 6 or 7 years, it made it happen 3 times. I tried to get local businesses involved. They weren't interested because I had trouble disposing of the garbage.
Right. Yeah.
And so I'd stopped asking local businesses if I could just dump my garbage in their bins.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them or two of them just said no, because I didn't realize this. They have to pay, of course, for their bins, and they didn't want me to put all their garbage there because they'd have to pay, whoever picks up their bins to take it away.
Yeah.
I thought that was kind of short-sighted of them. But it's very discouraging. I lived overseas for a long time, and I came back about 11 years ago, and I was just shocked. My arrival first night, I was at the Lord Nelson, and I noticed all the cigarette butts all over the driveway in the corners. At that point, I used to be a smoker, but I lived in Asia, and everything was pristine. The roads were pristine. They had garbage cans everywhere. The smokers are very careful not to put their butts on the ground. But Lord Nelson was just covered they had a corner there, the driveway. It was just full of butts. And anyways, but that's my story.
Okay, Jeff.
I'm not hopeful.
Yeah, I hear you, bud. I hear your frustration. Thanks for the call.
Okay, then.
All right,
Bye-bye.
take care. 902-405-6000. Roger, hello.
Yes, I'd like to add some conversation around personal accountability.
Sure.
Something that I have noticed over, let's say, 10-year period, up on the Bicentennial Highway, there's a lot of litter on the side of the road. So over the years, I've been watching what's been going on. And what I've seen is a lot of the litter that started out in HRM came from HRM themselves, in which their garbage trucks are depositing garbage on the side of the road. And what I mean by that is this. I've followed them, and I've tried to actually film this, and I've not been able to do that because obviously I'm alone in my vehicle, so it's very difficult to do so. But in behind them, I've actually been where once they release their loads from the dumping stations and they come back across the highways, these trucks were never meant to be on the highways. What in fact is happening is there is a vortex of air that gets sucked into the trucks from the front of the trucks. And then there's a vortex on the back of the truck. That air sucks any debris that's inside those trucks out onto the side of the highways. I've actually physically seen full garbage bags coming out the back of these trucks. Now, I did at one point, going back into Sackville, watch a truck that was coming down the road, and it was up by Larry Utek. And I did flag him, and I got him to pull over. He pulled over on the side of the road because I obviously flagged him with my headlights and that. He thought there was an issue. He had just dumped a huge amount of debris all over the highway. So I approached him in his truck, And I told him, I said, did you realize? I said, you left a huge amount of garbage back there on the highway around the UTEC area. His response to me was this: I didn't realize that my truck did that also. That is scary. So what's happened over time, okay, in HRM is it's a learned behavior, as you can appreciate. Yeah. If we do things, then young people and old people and middle-aged people adopt what is out there. So if they see garbage and they see trash, guess what they're going to do? They're going to think that it's okay to deposit stuff. HRM is not taking responsibility for their own dumping. They are dumping on our highways, and they shouldn't be doing that. They know it's happening, and they are not doing anything about it. I would love to see some network out there follow behind these trucks to see what's actually physically going on. I have not been able to record them. I've seen the dumping actually happening going across the bridge from Halifax to Dartmouth. I've seen it come off, go in our waterways and everything else. This is unacceptable. And every time that this conversation comes up, I'm yelling at the radio saying, damn it, take your responsibility. And the councillors every time do not take responsibility, will not take responsibility, and shove it off onto somebody else, that we need to go to the schools, we need to have conversation with the kids. Yes, we do. We need to have the conversations with society in a whole. But we also need to have the respectful conversation to say, hey, guess what? It is on us. We are also doing this. We need to fix our trucks. Yeah. Get them off the road. They're not meant to be on a highway. They're meant to be on side roads. That's what they were designed for. They were never designed to be on a highway. And now, because we have to transport our garbage outside of the city, now we are having the issue.
Interesting. Okay, Roger, thanks for the call.
You're quite welcome.
All right, take care. That's an interesting point he said about the trucks. 902-405-6000. We'll continue with your calls when we come back.
Facts.
All right, continuing with your calls. The way to reach us, 902-405-6000. Again, 902-405-6000. Before we go back to phones, an email from Paul, who wrote this to the Premier. It says, I'm writing about the seasonal scourge of trash, especially trash strewn along our roads and highways. I've lived throughout Canada. I can tell you that no other province has the extent of highway trash and litter found in Nova Scotia. I believe there are solutions. Number one, education. Raise awareness of the problem through advertising and signage. Put more emphasis on civic responsibility in schools. Number two, fines. Raise the fines for littering and dumping. Fines for unsecured objects and loads in pickup trucks, beds should be hefty. Number three, stronger and better enforcement. Number four, better access to garbage receptacles. Build areas with garbage receptacles along our roads where drivers can pull off to dispose of car litter. And five, consult with the province and states to find out how they have tackled this scourge. That comes from Paul. Again, on the awareness thing, if you surveyed 1,000 people, 10,000 people, 20,000 people, whatever the number would be, I think you'd be hard-pressed, and you ask them the simple question, is littering good or bad? I think that, look, I suppose there might be some clowns that would, just for the sake of being shocked, would say it's bad, but you get my point. Everybody knows that littering is not cool, I would dare say. Now, whether or not people care or not is another question, but when it comes to education, it just blows my mind that we have to, in this day and age, tell people that littering is not a good thing. I just think that is unbelievable that we're in this situation that we're in, that people are still, and it seems to be the problem, it seems to be proliferating. And of course, as the population grows and demands on the municipality grow with it. So the idea that we have municipal employees or provincial employees paid good money to go pick up litter, and to the scale that it would be required to stay on top of it, I don't know that makes sense. And community groups, look, they play a role in this for sure. But how much can community groups do? I don't know. I know what the answer is. The answer is don't litter. But unfortunately, that's sometimes, obviously, the simple stuff doesn't work. 902-405-6000. Ron's giving us a call. Hello, Ron.
Hello, good morning. Speaking of litter, I was in Yarmouth last September for 3 days, and I didn't see any litter. I would say I didn't see any, but there might have been some. But anyway, the thing was, I was in the area of where the hotels are, where Wendy's, Tim Hortons, Kentucky Fried Chicken, and McDonald's, and there's no litter around those areas. I didn't even see cigarette butts. So I don't know what they're doing down there. It was just for that weekend. It was all cleaned up or what. But another thing about litter is they should start fining people for throwing cigarette butts down, because cigarette butts is litter, and it's stinky, especially in the city, around sidewalks. Every door you go by is a bunch of cigarette butts. And if they find people for just throwing cigarette butts down, that might help encourage people not to litter other stuff. That's all I can say about that.
Okay, Ron, thanks for the call. Appreciate it. Take care. 902-405-6000. He raises an interesting point, though, in that when it's kind of like housework, right? When the housework gets done, then you don't notice it because it's done. You notice it when it's not done. And the same as littering and areas not being littered or being cleaned up. I guess the reward is you don't notice it. 902-405-6000. Bill, hello.
Hi, Todd.
Hi there.
Got some of the answers on your litter.
Okay.
First of all, I'll let you take the credit on one of them there, which is an easy one. What about Tim Hortons? What do you think?
What do you mean? What about Tim Hortons? What about them?
Well, I'm opening the door for you to give me the idea on that one. Well, I'll tell you what it is. You didn't jump on it. So basically, if Tim Hortons raised the price 5 or 10 cents on their coffee and tea, what do you call them? You wouldn't see one Tim Horton or any of these people who put out coffee and tea. You wouldn't see one on the street, sidewalk, anywhere, because they'd be collecting their 5 or 10 cents, which Tim Hortons could write off anyway.
Oh, you're talking redeemable on the cup.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in other words, it's instead of $1 or $2, whatever it is, you put another 5 or 10 cents on it. They write it off or tax write-off or something. You won't see any because everybody be searching like beer bottles. Okay, so that's that one. Now that could happen in a lot of other products put out there by different outfits that's littering the road. One fellow got on there and said that one good thing about putting some kind of containers along the highway for people that instead of just throwing it in the ditch, they put it in the bin. The other thing that you should have is, a serious fines, really serious fines that's going to basically curtail people doing this. And I actually work out something where, too, not just a fine, but they've actually got to get out there for so long picking up garbage. What do you think?
Well, on which one first? The Tim Hortons one?
Yeah.
Well, look, Bill, I hate to be the naysayer of your ideas because I think that you get some good ideas sometimes, but I think administratively, Tim Hortons would never touch it. It would be, they would have to have a massive area in which people bring these cups back and they'd have to administer it. It would have to be cost effective for them to do it. And I see no way in that happening. No way that would ever happen, first off.
Well, you have the same idea with bottles. You never see beer bottles around anywhere.
Yeah, I think it's a bit different. That's infrastructure's up and running, and that's a shared that's government sponsored organizations that collect that. I just think for a private company like Tim Hortons to set up a redeemable cups program, you're right. They'd get lots of people would be picking them up because people are desperate for money. But I just think that the company wouldn't be incentivized financially enough to do it, and administratively, I think it would be a logistical nightmare for them. Perhaps. And what was your other comment again, Bill?
A container like that fellow said along the road.
Right. I get it. My belief is that if some yard bird, some clown is going to toss their garbage out on their highway, they're probably going to do it whether every 50 kilometers an hour there's a bin or 50 clicks or so there's a bin in order to do it in. I don't know that would make a massive difference.
Well, I think so, because it'd be a certain percentage would.
Well, you're right. A certain percentage would, but isn't it sad, Bill, that people would say, well, there's no garbage can, so I'm going to throw my garbage out. I mean, just hold on to it till you get somewhere, till you get home, or do you get to there's always options other than tossing your garbage out. To me, it's the epitome, and it's just absolutely disgraceful that people throw their litter out the window. I can't believe people do it. It really blows my mind.
The other thing, Todd, is continue to really put the fines. There's serious fines. I mean, even jail term if they repeat, and actually get them out out there as part of the work crew there. That's part of their sentence. Otherwise, in jail with you, because I'd say that if you do those things, you're going to cut her in half at least, Todd.
Yeah. Okay, Bill. Thanks for the call.
Thank you.
All right, take care. 902-405-6000. Look, it comes down to enforcement again. And do you pay? Who are you paying to enforce this? And the administration of it. Again, I hate to be a naysayer, and I get it that we need to come up with ideas, and this is what this is all about, is sharing ideas. But it's resources, right? So if the municipality or the province or whomever dumps a bunch of resources, pun intended, into dumping and littering, then that's going to be taken from somewhere else. And perhaps some of you believe that would be a good use of resources. I'm not saying that it isn't, but it comes at a cost, is my point. 902-405-6000. Stephen, hello. Hi, Stephen.
Hey, Todd. Sorry, I think I had you on mute.
No problem. Go ahead, bud.
I completely 100% agree with you. It's resourcing, it's policing, it's really never going to happen. I walk around my neighborhood and, yes, there's litter, and yes, the nearest KFC from me is 30 kilometers away, yet there's a KFC cup or bucket or bag or whatever in a ditch, So obviously somebody just was lazy, threw it out the window, and wasn't responsible. I completely agree with you. There's no reason for it. There is so many garbage receptacles around. They actually come to your house every 2 weeks and take your garbage from you. Exactly. So there's really no reason for it. But the one thing that concerns me that I see a lot of the time, and where I live, we don't have we have ditches. We don't have sewers or anything like that. Beer cans and cooler cans in the ditches. Like, how did that get there? Like, were you driving and then threw a beer can out your window, or were you walking and threw a beer can out your window? Yeah. Like, I'm. That's the one that concerns me. I mean, my neighborhood has annual cleanup program where we get the folks out and we buy them Timbits and hot chocolate and stuff like that, and everyone gets out and cleans up the ditches. But the amount of alcohol containers I see walking through my neighborhood, that is disturbing, Todd. Like, shocks the hell out of me.
Yeah, how does it happen? Obviously, people are drinking and consuming alcohol in vehicles, whether or not they're the passenger or not. That's what's going on. There's no other way around it, right?
It's still litter, but good God, people.
Yeah, I hear you, pal. I hear you, Steve. Thanks, bud.
Shake your head twice.
I hear you, bud. Thanks for the call, man.
Thanks, Todd.
Take care. 902-405-6000. Give us a call, folks, if you want to weigh in on this. What are your litter solutions? What do you think could be done? And maybe you think that some of the solutions have already been talked about, and perhaps there's always a reason to not do something, I suppose. And I don't want to be the negative person here and giving you all kinds of reasons why something can't be done. But I also trying to be realistic. and consider these things. If you had garbage cans every 50 kilometers during a roadway as opposed to none, would that make a significant, impactful difference? I would suggest it wouldn't, because the idiot that's going to throw the garbage out is going to do it anyway. To me, this is beyond no excuse. Beyond no excuse. We have all kinds of issues and challenges. Most issues and challenges that face our society are complex. When it comes to root cause, why people do things, homelessness, drug addiction, you go down the list. There's a lot of reasons why, very complex reasons why. This ain't one of them, folks. This is pretty basic stuff. You have garbage, you hold on to it until you get somewhere to put it in a garbage can or a garbage bag. What's the opposite of that is you have disregard and no respect for yourself or anybody else, and you just toss it out the window, or you just toss it as you consume it and get rid of it. To me, there's no lingering root cause as to why people do this. It's just stupidity. It's carelessness. It's a complete lack of respect for everybody involved, and you can't defend it. So as a society, how do we fight against that? I don't know. Dumping a bunch of resources into it, I don't know if that's the answer. Public groups, community associations, community outreach, that helps for sure. But clearly it's not getting the job done. So what's your take on all this, folks? 902-405-6000. We'll continue with your calls when we come back.
Facts.
Here's an email, then back to the phones. The email says this: in Rwanda, the last Saturday of every month is dedicated to a national cleanup where all residents are required to participate, so there's no garbage, period. Cleanest place I've ever visited. Thanks for sending that along. 902-405-6000. Tanya, hello.
Hi. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
I'm out of breath. I just came up some stairs. Okay, just want to make a couple points. I've had to call Department of Public Works about 5 or 6 times over the past 2 months, because I saw, driving to work, I drove throughout the city, at Pleasant Street and Highway 111, someone was dropping off black garbage bags at least twice a week. So the last time I called Public Works, they said, well, maybe it's a garbage collection program. And I said, well, they've been sitting there for a week and a half. Someone should be picking them up, should they not? Anyway, that's happened a few times. I didn't see any today. Mm-hmm. Also, I do really think it's a matter of people being unaccountable and lazy. I walk my dog every day. People don't put their green bins back to their house. They leave it on the street for 4 days after pickup. Flyer delivery. People don't pick up their flyers. They leave them in the driveway until they rot.
Yeah.
And the people who deliver the flyers keep throwing them on the lawn.
Yeah.
Oh, there's 4. Oh, let's just put 1 more on there. You know what? It's unreal. People can't pick up flyers off their own driveway.
Yeah, that's right.
It's freaking ridiculous.
Yep, can't argue with you.
Talk about the feces, dog feces everywhere.
Yeah.
And even if they do pick it up, they leave the bag where they picked it up.
Yeah, that blows my mind.
Yeah. And my mail, we have, of course, community mailboxes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you get flyers that you don't like, take them to your house, put them in your blue bag. You don't throw them it gets me so frustrated. It's not funny. Like, people do better.
Yeah, there you go. Well said. Thanks, Tanya. People do better. Well said. Thanks for the call. Leonard, hello.
Hi.
Hi
I didn't
there.
expect to get on so quick. I thank you for your program this morning, and I just wanted to pass on a couple of comments. Because of my career, I lived in a lot of places throughout Canada, and when I was in British Columbia, I took real big notice of the fines that's levied on people littering. And out there, like here, you see signs up for $250, and I don't know if it's enforced, but out there it's $2,500, and I've never seen a cleaner province in my life than out there. And like I lived on Vancouver Island mostly, but I can't speak for the interior of British Columbia. But it was a real notice that that people were a lot cleaner, and whether the fines had anything to do with it, I don't know. But it was quite a drastic fine, like I said, $2,500. Second point is I currently live in an area here where there's major construction, and you mentioned about the garbage cans. I don't think it would make any difference either. I agree with your comment on that, because the construction areas, they have these big bins sitting there on site, and even the workers themselves are coming in to go to work in the day, building the houses and the apartments, and they're throwing their coffee cups around, and there's a big bin right there for them to throw their material in, their used materials.
Yeah.
So, anyway, I just want to make that comment.
Okay, thanks for the call, pal. Take care. Fred, hello.
Yeah, Todd, good morning. I got a couple quick solutions for you. One, for every business that has disposable goods, such as Tim Hortons, anything else, to have a 5-cent charge on each and every, not item, but on each and every order. Take that money as like a tax, put it into an account where people like the Boy Scouts, the Girl Scouts, the hockey teams, and all that stuff can turn around and adopt a portion of the highway or whatever, go pick up gas, and then they would in turn be rewarded by this monetary fund in support of all their curricular activities. The second one I got is a lot of cars have GoPros on them. So increase the fine to $1,000, and if a guy on there has a GoPro on him and sees somebody littering on him and has the license plate on that GoPro and him littering out the window, give him 10% of the cut.
Yeah, not bad ideas. Not bad ideas, Fred. Thanks for the call, pal.
Yep.
All right, take care. Thanks for the calls, everybody. Didn't get to all of you for that. I apologize. Obviously, this is a topic that people are thinking about, and people are extremely frustrated about, and I think rightfully so. And something tells me that at some point in the future, we'll be talking about it again. When it comes to interprovincial trade barriers by Canada Day, which is what Mark Carney is a goal that he has set, Moshe Lander says it's an uphill battle. We'll talk with Moshe when we come back. Moshe Lander, economist from Montreal's Concordia University, joins us for a chat. Moshe, thanks for joining the show. We appreciate your time. Hi, Moshe.
Hello.
Yes. So, look, when it comes to the trade environment and the global trade environment and all that goes along with trade, be prepared to move and to react to the moving target that is Donald Trump. Right? It's hard to stay on top of all this, in my opinion. What's your take on that?
You're completely right. It's changing from one day to the next, and sometimes that change can be a 180, and then the next day you can have another 180 going back to where you originally were, and the day after that he could double down on what he originally said on the second day. Like it's complete chaos, and I don't know if that's the design, is to create uncertainty. But yeah, that's certainly the byproduct of his economic policy.
Okay, and to that, I initially reached out to talk about interprovincial trade barriers and the challenges, and we'll get to that. But first, I wanted to ask you what your take is on this 90-day, I guess, reprieve with China, and it looks like the markets are happy anyway for now. What's your takeaway on U.S.-China reaching a deal to slash tariffs for 90 days?
It's a sad state of affairs that we're viewing this as a success, that we've reduced the tariffs, but 6 months ago we weren't even having tariffs between the U.S. and China. So, the idea that this is now somehow a success and that Trump will claim it's a success is that you create maximum chaos and disruption to the global economy, and then you take a step back from that maximum chaos, even though there's still some chaos around, and you say, yeah, that's successful. Look, it's better than what it was 24 hours ago, but there's still a long way to go to where we were 6 months ago. And I think that whatever deal that it is that they ultimately come up with should be compared against pre-Trump, not last week.
And why do you think there's always kind of these time horizons affixed with these things, 90 days and 30 days? Is that to keep the world on edge, or what's the motivation there? That's
exactly it. It's that, 60 days from now, we're going to ramp up again and start talking about well, in 30 days, if they don't come up with a deal, in his mind, he views everything as just one big business negotiation. But if this is the way that he runs his business, it's not a surprise why he's maybe overstating his success. Who would want to do business with this, where you're constantly having to guess what mood he's going to be in or what he's going to text out in the middle of the night? I think that it's a sad state that this is where the global economy finds itself, having to wait now for 90 days in suspense as to what's going to happen next. It's not a reality TV show. This is the livelihood of billions of people that are at stake here, with trillions of dollars of money floating around.
And I would think that the instability would really kind of spook in many ways potential investors into all types of industry because of the unpredictable nature of this.
Yeah, and there's no safe place to go. Normally, when you have some sort of economic instability, the U.S. would be the natural place to where you take flight. If not there, gold is a natural place to park your money. Sometimes Japan or Switzerland will see that their currencies will appreciate because they're seen as relatively stable economies. But he's gone after every single economy in the world. And of course, if you remember a couple of months ago, there were those articles that he even slapped tariffs on an island of penguins and seals. Like it's so chaotic that because everybody realizes nobody is safe, including the U.S. economy, that sort of destabilization then makes it really difficult for businesses that are looking to make 15 to 30-year investment plans where you don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. Everybody understands that some uncertainty in the world is an acceptable cost of doing business. But what you don't want is that it's inflicted by the one economy that everybody wants to be tied to, and that they're radiating it out onto everybody.
Okay, so when it comes to Canada, where's our place in all of this?
Well, at least for now, we don't have to worry about choosing between the U.S. and China, given that they had really escalated that trade war. The fear for us is that given that they are our two biggest trade partners, we didn't want to be placed in the middle at some point and say, all right, whose side are you on in this? So the fact that they're able to mutually find a way towards where they were means that this should help the Canadian economy if our two biggest trade partners aren't pushing each other towards recession. Remember that when they go into recession, their incomes fall. If their incomes fall, they buy less stuff, and some of that stuff would be Canadian. So we should find that maybe our exports don't recover to where they were pre-Trump, but they might not be as devastated as they would have been had they stared each other down the way they were the last month or so.
Okay, let's talk about trade barriers, interprovincial trade barriers, and Mark Carney's lofty goal of having them down by Canada Day. It's reading a story in which you're quoted, and you talk about this seems to be a pretty big challenge, and I don't even know if it's doable. What's your take on it?
Right. Look, interprovincial barriers are created by the provinces themselves. There are some interprovincial barriers that the federal government can create, but for the most part, they are not the ones that are running the provinces. So for them to say, well, we're going to scrap all of our rules and regulations at the federal level, easy enough and good on them. We've seen Ontario has already started to move towards removing theirs because they recognize that it is a way to try and boost their economy. But getting the other 9 premiers and 3 territorial premiers to agree that they're going to remove theirs, remember those things were put in place because somebody provincially went to their government and said, it would be great if you could erect this barrier to keep out competition from the other provinces and territories. So Mark Carney can sit them all down at a table and say, look, this is what's good for Canada. Will Quebec go along with it? Will Alberta go along with it now? And what goodies is he going to have to offer them to get them to agree to remove those tariffs and other barriers that exist? And don't forget, too, that each of the provinces works on its own electoral timetable. So where Carney can sit back and say, in theory, I'm safe from the voters for the next 5 years, there are other provinces that could be facing elections within the next 12 months and say, I don't have that luxury of being able to go to my constituents and saying, I might have created some losers within my province, even though the gains of the winners would exceed them. The losers are the ones that scream loud and grab the news headlines. Okay, so these preliminary deals are these deals made by Doug Ford and Tim Houston and some other provincial partnerships. How much value do they have? So if you were to remove all of the interprovincial barriers like Mark Carney wants, that could add about $200 billion worth of economic activity into the Canadian economy. So given that the Canadian economy is give or take somewhere around $2 trillion or more, we're talking about 10% of GDP. That's a pretty sizable chunk of the economy that's gummed up by these barriers. Now, is it enough to insulate us from Trump and his damage? Not even close. But every little bit helps. And I think that's the way that we should be approaching it, is if we can find new trade deals, if we can remove our own barriers to trade internally, those types of things at least allow us to withstand a prolonged trade war with Trump and make it a little bit easier for us to dig our heels in and say, we're not prepared to concede on that just yet. I think in a lot of these trade wars, what we're going to find is that it's a war of attrition, and who can withstand the longest. In the case of the U.S. and China, I think China could have played the long game there if they wanted and inflict damage on their own economy where the U.S. would have blinked first. I don't know that we have that luxury. And so it's really important that we make sure that whether we're going to be able to withstand his tariffs for 3 months or 3 years, every little bit helps to give us that leverage to say how we negotiate going forward.
How much longer can the auto sector be in a state of flux here before it has irreparable harm, if not already to some degree, have we reached that?
We might have reached that, but it's interesting to note, if you take a look over the last, say, 10 to 20 years as to how many cars are being produced in Canada, the number has clearly been trending down. We're maybe at about 50% of where we were a generation ago. So you can't tell me that there's less cars being sold in North America. So it must mean that more of those cars are being built elsewhere, not necessarily in the U.S., but the key is that they're not being built in Canada. So, similar to when COVID hit, one of the things that I was saying then was, were we propping up industries that were in terminal decline, but because COVID was so stark, we decided to prop them up even though they were in their death throes. I don't know that the Canadian auto industry has reached its death throes just yet, but the trend is clearly down. And so when we're offering support, there's nothing wrong with that. People do need help if their job losses are not of their own making. But it's also important to maybe take a look at, are we propping up an industry who might be, say, a generation from disappearing entirely, and are we just delaying the inevitable?
And the EV side of it, what's your take on that? Because the EV, I would think that all the projections could potentially be thrown out the window based on the Trump administration and all the other variables. What's your take on the EV industry here in Canada and its future?
There's no EV industry in Canada if we don't have free access to the U.S. market. There's not enough of a market in Canada to justify all of the billions of dollars of upfront fixed costs if all you're doing is selling it to a bunch of hosers. If you can have access, though, to the U.S. market the way we have for 60 years under the Auto Pact and then the free trade agreements, then you might be able to make a story where it's viable and it could be profitable. But without access to the U.S. market, or if there's going to have to be a certain amount of American content, or there's going to be this underlying 10% tariff that exists, that industry is dead. Any money that's being thrown at it now by provincial or federal governments will never be recovered. And it might have been questionable whether it could have been recovered even without the tariffs.
Well, that doesn't sound very promising.
Normally, I'm pretty positive on your show here, but I don't know if it's Monday morning or if it's just the state of the economy. But yeah, I don't have a lot of good to offer you today.
Wow. Okay. I guess so. The bottom line is trying to replicate the U.S. and you said this quite well in the story, which I'm referencing, the Global News story, but trying to replicate what access to the United States market is through reducing interprovincial trade barriers, although a good initiative, some would say, is not going to get it done. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, if you're only adding $200 billion to the Canadian economy, I'm saying only like it's a small number to me, but if you're only adding $200 billion, remember that the amount of trade that we do with the U.S. is closer to $500 billion. So it's a substantially different number that we're talking about by removing those barriers internally. Again, is it better than nothing? For sure it is, but it's still a long way to go. And even finding those other trade partners is going to be really difficult. Notice that nobody's been pounding on the door saying, hey, we want to negotiate with Canada now because we've realized the value of our own damage from Trump's tariffs on our economy. Let's go look at finding like-minded people. It's going to be really difficult to overcome that number.
Moshe, always great. Appreciate it, pal. Thanks.
You got it. Anytime.
All right, take care. Moshe Lander, Concordia University economist. Down to 2, Nova Scotia enters wildfire season with a helicopter pilot shortage. We'll talk with this when we come back. All right, I saw this story on the CTV website. Nova Scotia's Department of Natural Resources down to just 2 helicopter pilots amid wildfire season. Joining us to talk about all of this, Sandra Mullen, NSGEU President. Sandra, thanks for joining the show. We appreciate your time.
Thanks for reaching out.
All right, so these pilots obviously fall under your umbrella, correct?
They do.
Wow. Okay. All right. So what are the retention, lack of pay? What are the reasons? What's going on here?
Well, of course, these folks, this issue came to light when Nova Scotia experienced a real emergency here 2 years ago with our wildfires that we had in Nova Scotia. The previous government sold off a lot of equipment, which meant folks left positions because the equipment wasn't here. So here we are, we had a crisis when we had to borrow from New Brunswick and Newfoundland to be able to fight those fires. What's happened, as in a lot of cases, these folks who are highly trained are also in high demand throughout the country with respect to pilots. You look at commercial industries, you see that they cannot retain, folks are retiring, real staffing issues. So when our folks did a review across the country, of course, here they are in the lowest of the low. So they were lowest paid in the country at the time, and government and the union worked outside of a bargaining contract to see what we could do. So we did see some increases of, from 17% to a pilot 3 to 32% increase for a chief pilot. We still have an issue. We still have only 2 of 6 positions, so it is difficult to recruit these folks. They're in high demand, and we need to continue working towards whatever we can do to recruit. This is not a time to let go of public service. These folks are needed when we have an emergency, and that was proven. So again, NSGEU is trying to promote the value in protecting public service, and these are just one example.
Okay, and what's the province saying here?
Well, we haven't heard any more back on what's next because it's a real recruitment issue and retention, of course. But, we have to consider what happens when we can't staff these positions ourselves. We saw this crisis that happened in nursing when we see these private agencies and the reliance on that. It costs more money. So if it is a matter of looking at the wage patterns that need to be there, we need to do that. We need to stop that reliance on private agencies. The amount of money spent in those situations are far exceeding what we should be spending to staff appropriately.
Okay, and contracting pilots, I would assume that would be something similar. First of all, you don't know whether you can rely on it long term, and the cost would likely be exponentially more, right?
Exactly, and when these emergencies happen, you want staff that you have trained and ready to go.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess it's a similar story, right? We talk about this with bargaining unit after bargaining unit after bargaining unit, whether it be, I mean, the list goes on and on. I'm sure you could raffle off a long list of bargaining units here, but it's the same story. Jail guards come to the top of my mind.
Yep.
That are notoriously underpaid, and the list goes on and on. So why doesn't the province wake up and figure this out?
Well, exactly, and we need to bring to light, and that's our focus right now, to promote the value of public service. We cannot continue to service what we need in Nova Scotia without increasing and maintaining our public service. So that is our mission to do so, and as you know, we're at the table currently, but general economic increases do not fix these particular types of situations. So this is a serious issue, and the competition out there for this sector is pretty heavy. Mm-hmm. So it's very important to maintain the services that we have. We can blame Mother Nature and climate change for the serious incidents that are occurring, but we can't rely on Mother Nature to rain every time we have these huge fires. So.
Yeah, and we're not talking about hundreds of employees here either. We're talking about just a handful of employees, and so the cost to remedy the situation, I wouldn't think would be. I think it would be worth it when you look at the work that they do when needed.
Absolutely, and if they can prevent loss, they're well paid.
Yeah, more than make up for themselves. A helicopter sitting on the tarmac, not able to fly because there's not a pilot, and a fire burning out of control. That's not a scenario that anybody wants.
Exactly. And just a reminder, when we did have to borrow from our neighbors in New Brunswick and Newfoundland, the folks in New Brunswick were fighting their own fires. So they were dropping water in Nova Scotia back across the Bay of Fundy to service New Brunswick. We can't rely on that.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, so as of now, Sandra, there's nothing in the works, as far as you're concerned.
Not that we've heard, but our members are continuing to keep us to keep this at the top of the issue, because we do need to get government to review this.
Yeah, and unfortunately, if there was, and let's hope and pray that there's no forest fires this summer. But I shouldn't say no, but not any massive issue. If there is, and there's a large loss, and it can be identified that this is a problem, then the action will be taken, right? Because public outcry will demand it. So let's do it first, not after the fact.
Exactly. We need public to be well aware of what's going on.
Okay, Sandra, appreciate your time as always. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, take care. Sandra Mullen, NSGEU President. And again, folks, look, these are specialty jobs. And I liken it to Halifax Transit with the pilots, the ship pilots, the captains, rather, for the ferries. And they're down almost weekly because they don't have enough staff. And I get it that it's specialized jobs, but you got to pay. You got to pony up and pay for these jobs. It's too vital not to have it. You need to have these jobs staffed up, and we need these pilots. So province, figure it out, because we don't want to have unmanned helicopters sitting on the tarmac, unable to do their job with a fire raging, because the province saved $50,000 or $75,000 or whatever the number is. Or even if it were $250,000, it wouldn't matter. You need to pay up because it's too important not to otherwise. I saw this story on the CBC website. Province asked Dal to consider offering Doctor of Veterinary Medicine program. We'll get into this when we come back. Read the story on the CBC website. The headline, Province asked Dalhousie University to consider offering a Doctor of Veterinary Medicine program. Nova Scotia currently funds 24 seats at the Atlantic Veterinary College in Prince Edward Island. Joining us to talk about all this is Dr. Penny Richards, the Nova Scotia representative at the Canadian Veterinary Medical Association. Dr. Richards, thanks for joining the show.
Thank you for inviting me, Todd.
All right, so what's your reaction to this, I guess, first off?
Well, we don't really have any information on the proposal to answer this question. We haven't not been contacted by the government about it. We are in the middle of a veterinary crisis right now, of a shortage that is not just our province, but North American-wide, and is across all sectors of the veterinary world. It is much more severe rurally and in large animal mixed practice. So we do need cost-effective, relatively fast solutions. I am not sure this is either. Certainly the increased seats that Nova Scotia has funded with the Atlantic Veterinary College with a 3-year return to service agreement is a really good step.
Okay, so the province itself is asking for this. What prompted the province, I suppose, to ask for it?
Well, you probably should ask them that. I did note in the report there was a comment about increasing the need for large animal veterinarians, so they may be looking at the possibility of a different type of program emphasis. But the amount of cost and time to set up new infrastructure is large. If you look at some of the initiative across Canada, some of the new seats that are be adding at other veterinary colleges do have an allocation for rural students, and there is capacity to increase seats at the Atlantic Veterinary College. So, that's an option as well there.
Okay, so tell us about the need and how much of a need there is actually going on here when it comes to vets.
Well, the veterinary shortage has been building for a long time. Some of it is the increase in pet ownership, both the population increase of people and more people owning pets. But the biggest thing is that at the same time the baby boomers have been retiring, there has been a shift in medicine to give veterinarians better work-life balance, and the medicine itself has changed, which so much more available and more time is spent with each pet. So you have, people working maybe a little less hours, spending more time with each pet, so you're not overall seeing as many animals, both large and small. We also have a retention issue. So when we look at our shortage, it is dealing with all of those problems.
Okay, so I suppose when it comes to the veterinary position itself and the burnout and all that goes with it, these are still real challenges that we're dealing with here, right?
They are a real challenge. And because of burnout, many veterinarians are leaving the practice earlier in their career than previously. So that's compounding the shortages. So some of the answer is an increase in seats, but seats alone won't solve the problem. We need to deal with issues of retention, and we need to deal with the fact that not as many veterinarians prefer to work in the environment of a rural or a large animal mixed practice. So besides growing seats, another possible solution is through immigration. So there are countries that do overproduce veterinarians who are job ready, more rural or large animal focused, and there is a large interest in immigrating to Canada. So it is looking at both things, increasing seats and working on immigration.
Okay, what's the licensing process for people wanting to come here from other countries?
Yeah, so we have a really great licensing process that involves testing and licensing them to ensure that they meet our standards, and it involves written and hands-on testing. Our current system of testing right now has become severely backlogged. 10 years ago, in 2015, we had 165 applications. In the last 2 years, it has surged to 2,500. Our current system is totally bottlenecked. We need a national testing center to help deal with this, and we've been lobbying hard with the federal government for support in this initiative. Veterinarians are a vital part of our food safety chain at protecting public health, and the solutions to the shortage need to be supported federally as well as provincially.
Okay, so also when it comes to like a medical school, I think there's a parallel here. You're going to take talent from, or you're going to take that expertise from the field and move them into teaching. That creates a strain on resources as well, does it not?
It does create a strain on resources as well. And the other issue is that the shortage of veterinarian extends to veterinarians that are in academia or teaching veterinarians. And we do have to compete with the United States for these specialists. So staffing veterinary colleges is very challenging, and that's an extra layer of problem if you look at expanding here versus growing on what we already have.
Okay, veterinary ownership and practices. Is there any concern at all that the small practice, the private practice, may be perhaps sold out, if that might not be the best turn of phrase, but a larger players might be coming in and taking over these practices?
Yeah, there is an increased I can't even say that word, more corporate ownership practices.
Yeah.
But as long as practices are profitable and can be staffed, there is no reason they can't still be rural. So whether it's corporate or private, we are losing rural practices. And it's because the veterinarians that work there have to deal with covering emergencies, not having enough relief, nowhere to get specialists and advice that's, close enough. So it can be really challenging to work in those environments. So whether it's corporate or private, we do need to change both how we practice rural medicine and the expectations of the public so that we can start to fill those gaps and voids.
Okay, Doctor, appreciate your time. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you very much for having me. And I would like to point out one other thing.
Sure.
That veterinary medicine is just a fabulous and rewarding profession. And while we have these challenges, the long-term answers are in our amazing young people. And I have every faith that our future is bright, that they will find our way forward.
Dr. Richards, thank you for your time.
Okay, Todd, you have a good day.
All right, take care. Dr. Penny Richards, the Nova Scotia representative of the Canadian Veterinary Medical Association. Alberta seeks court ruling on constitutionality of Ottawa's clean electricity plan. We'll delve into this when we come back. Last at the control board's doing a fine job as always. We're back tomorrow at 10 o'clock. See you then.